Hello and welcome to this first lecture on this topic of investing in AI literacy for leaders in this course, AI for managers and leaders. So in this lecture, we will talk about how to train leaders in how AI reasons, fails, and hallucinates. So how do you think you can do that? How can you train leaders in how AI reasons, fails, and hallucinates? Training leaders in how AI reasons, fails, and hallucinates is first thing to know is that it's essential. It's essential for good judgment, not technical mastery. And the whole idea is the whole goal is to create AI literate decision makers, not only engineers. And let's take a look at this leader ready training framework that you can directly use in workshops, executive programs, or anywhere else. Right. So let's take a look at this framework. The first thing you need to do is start with the right mental model. Start with the right mental model, which can tell you how AI actually thinks. And leaders must unlearn the myth that AI knows. And what you need to teach very clearly is that AI only predicts, right? It doesn't know. It does not reason like humans. It only predicts, and it predicts based on, probabilistic outputs, not factual guarantees. Based on the past data, it predicts probabilities, and it optimizes plausibility, not truths. What is plausible is what it optimizes, and there you would need to know is that its confidence doesn't equal correctness. It could be confident but not correct. And a simple, executive analogy that illustrates this is that AI is an extremely fast intern with perfect memory, no lived experience, and no accountability. And this can reset expectations immediately from AI. So start with this mental model, right? Then what you need to do is to explain AI reasoning without math or code. You know, leaders don't need algorithms, they need intuition. And what you need to do is to teach at a level where you tell AI learns patterns from past data. And then it generalizes from what looked similar before. So that's how it retrieves the knowledge. And then in decision making, please know its limitation that it does not understand context unless you tell it explicitly. And second, it has no awareness of consequences. What will happen? It has no awareness of that, unless again it is there in the old patterns. So, in teaching and training and explaining, you can use this visual framework of inputs, pattern matching, probability, and outputs. And if leaders can get this, this pipeline, they will stop over trusting AI. Over trusting is the word. You need to trust with reasonable skepticism. Then you need to teach the three core AI failure modes, right? And each leader should memorize these, know this, remember this by heart. The first is hallucination, in which, AI does fabrication of things confidently. AI fills gap with plausible, I would use the word nonsense. Nonsense in a positive way, something that doesn't happen, has not happened or will not happen. It can fill the gap with that. And this happens when the data is missing, ambiguous, or conflicting. And the thing to remember for you as a leader is that when AI sounds too smooth, right? Verify. Like even human beings, when someone is too smooth, obviously he is fabricating. So that's hallucination of AI. Second failure mode is when it starts omitting. It starts, you know, having silent blind spot. AI ignores what isn't in the training data, right? And the cases are like minority cases, edge risk, or new situations that are not there. And the takeaway for leadership there is that AI sees averages, not exceptions. It's built on that kind of model. The third failure mode is the misgeneralization. finding the wrong patterns, and there it applies a pattern correctly but to the wrong situation. It misjudges the situation. It's common in strategy, people decision, and ethics. And the takeaway for you as leader is that similarity is not equivalence, right? So you need to teach these three core AI failure modes to leaders. Then you need to train leaders to spot hallucination signals, give leaders behavioral cues, not technical tests, and the red flags that leaders can use to detect hallucinations of AI is that AI is overly confident with the tone with no uncertainty, right? While there will be uncertainty if you're drawing conclusions based on past patterns, there's lack of sources or there's vague attribution. And there are inconsistent answers across similar prompts. And also, the another red flag is a perfectly structured but shallow logic. And when it starts agreeing with every assumption that you make, that's another signal of hallucination. There, you need to teach leaders to ask you questions like what would change this answer? And what data are you least confident about? And what assumptions are hidden here? So train leaders to detect these red flags and ask these questions. Then you need to teach AI to do cross examination. Now, leaders should interrogate AI like a smart advisor. And the core technique is to ask same question three ways, right? Request counter arguments, ask for worst case scenario, force AI to argue against itself, and ask, you know, uh, if it cannot answer reliably. And this will expose the fragility quickly. So while training leaders, you need to remember to make them learn the distinction clearly between AI confidence versus decision confidence. And the rule to remember is that AI confidence is synthetic. It is not natural. And a leader's confidence, on the other hand, is earned. So before acting, leaders should ask a question before acting on a decision or a recommendation. Do I understand why is this an answer? The leader has to ask and answer this for himself or herself. Do I know what could be wrong? And would I defend this decision without AI? If answer is any of them is no, you need to pause, think, and decide for yourself what is the right thing to do. So train them to separate AI confidence from decision confidence. Train them to use real failure case simulations. And that's extremely important because theory doesn't change behavior, experience does. And the simulation ideas like this that can illustrate failures is that AI gives a persuasive but wrong hiring recommendation. So you need to simulate that. AI fabricates compliance references, right? AI misses a rare but catastrophic raise, and it optimizes metrics while harming trust. And there you need to have leaders to, decide using AI, see its failure, redesign the decision process. And this will build instinct among the leaders, not fear. So use real failure case simulation to train leaders. Then teach when humans must, override AI. Leaders need clear override principles. So you must teach them the mandatory human judgment zones like ethics and value, people impact, irreversible decisions, reputation and trust, in novel and unprecedented situations where humans must override AI. Here, the best AI can do is to advise, and humans must decide it. So teach when humans must override AI. Reward leaders for questioning AI well because training will fail if the incentives or reward system contradicts it. So you can reinforce, your training by, praising thoughtful skepticism of AI recommendation, rewarding early detection of AI errors, early detection, and sharing stories of smart overrides that they did, and never punishing respectful challenges. And good leaders don't trust blindly, they use it wisely. right? They use it wisely. You need to end the training with a simple AI leadership code that can summarize these things, and these are the things that something that they can remember. So an AI literate a leader's code could be, to suggest where AI suggests and they decide as human beings. Wherever there's confidence that is too high, that there should be verification. And speed can never outrun judgment. So wherever required, it's okay to slow down. That's what leaders should learn. And wherever there's high uncertainty, that should trigger escalation, and responsibility will always be with them. It will never transfer to AI. So end the training with such simple AI leadership code. So what is the final insight we can draw in this lecture for leader? AI doesn't fail like humans. So leaders must think differently than before when dealing with AI. The organizations that win, won't have the best AI, but they will have the best AI trained leaders. So invest in having best trained AI leaders, right? So what is next? So in the next lecture, we will look at second part of investing in AI literacy for leaders, and there we will talk about how can you teach them to ask better questions, not only write better codes, right? So that's what we will talk about in the next lecture. So thank you so much for watching this first lecture on investing in AI literacy for leaders. I hope you're continuing to learn new things, continuing to enjoy. And I do look forward to see you again in the next lecture. Please feel free to message me if you have any questions. I'll be happy to answer your questions, and do download the PDF file to take a look at anything that you need to.